The church smelled like old wood and judgment. Clara walked down the aisle alone. Her father had disappeared, too ashamed or too drunk to face what he had done. Her mother had died, which maybe was a mercy. She would not have to see this. Every pew was full. The whole town had turned out, and not one face looked happy for her. Mrs. Caldwell whispered behind her fan. The Miller boys snickered. Even Pastor Reed looked uncomfortable. His Bible held like a shield against something he did not quite approve of, but would not refuse. At the altar stood Wyatt Harlan. He was taller than she remembered, 6 feet something of lean muscle and sun-darkened skin, dressed in what was probably his only clean shirt. His dark hair was slicked back, still damp. He had shaved, but there was a nick on his jaw where he had cut himself. His hands hung awkward at his sides, and he would not meet her eyes. He looked as miserable as she felt. "Dearly beloved," Pastor Reed began, his voice lacking conviction. Clara barely heard the words. Her mind was screaming, calculating, searching for an exit that did not exist. The bank held the papers. Wyatt had paid $2,500, a staggering sum to clear her family's debt. In exchange, her father had promised her hand in marriage. Sold. That was the word no one would say out loud, but everyone thought. "Do you, Wyatt Harlan? Take this woman." "I do." His voice was rough, like he did not use it much. "And you, Clara Bennett?" She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. The silence stretched. Someone coughed. Pastor Reed's eyebrows rose. Wyatt finally looked at her, and his expression was unreadable. Not angry, not impatient. Just waiting. What choice did she have? "I do," she whispered. "Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss the bride." Wyatt's jaw tightened. He stepped forward, and Clara's whole body went rigid. But he did not grab her. He did not claim her mouth like she had seen other grooms do. Instead, he leaned down and pressed the briefest, most impersonal kiss to her forehead. The kind you would give a child or a sister. Then he stepped back. "It is done," he said quietly to the pastor more than to her. Outside, a wagon waited. Not a fancy carriage, just a working ranch wagon with a patched canvas cover and 2 sturdy horses. Wyatt's whole life apparently was practical and plain. "This is it?" The words slipped out before Clara could stop them. Wyatt paused, one hand on the wagon. "Were you expecting something else?" "I do not know what I was expecting." He nodded slowly, like that made sense to him. Then he held out his hand to help her up. She ignored it and climbed up herself, her stupid dress catching on everything. By the time she settled on the wooden bench, her face was hot with frustration and embarrassment. Wyatt said nothing. He just walked around, climbed up beside her, and took the reins. The town watched them leave. Clara felt their stares like brands on her back, burning, permanent. She would never be just Clara Bennett again. She was Wyatt Harlan's wife now, the girl who got bought. They rode in silence. The road out of Silver Creek climbed into the foothills, leaving behind the dusty streets and clapboard buildings. Pine trees crowded close, and the air grew cooler. The only sounds were the creak of the wagon wheels and the steady clip-clop of hooves. Clara snuck glances at the man beside her. Wyatt kept his eyes on the road, his face expressionless. His hands were scarred. Rope burns, cuts, the thick calluses of hard labor. He did not wear a wedding ring. Neither did she. "How far is it?" she finally asked. He answered simply. That was it. Just the simple reply. Not an offer to change it or make it easier. Just a flat statement of fact. Clara swallowed the dozen questions burning in her throat. What kind of life was waiting for her? What did he expect from her? What would happen when the sun went down and they were alone? Her stomach twisted. "I should tell you something," Wyatt said suddenly. She tensed. "What?" "The house is not fancy. It is clean, but it is small. Just 3 rooms. I was not prepared for company." "I am not company. I am your wife." He flinched. Actually flinched like the word hurt him. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I guess you are." The ranch appeared as they crested a ridge. Clara's breath caught. Not from beauty, but from the sheer isolation of it. The house sat in a small valley surrounded by pine forest and rolling grassland. A barn, a corral, a few outbuildings. That was it. No neighbors, no other houses visible in any direction. Just wilderness and sky, and a loneliness so complete it had a weight. "Welcome home," Wyatt said, and the words sounded like an apology. He helped her down this time. She was too tired to argue, and she stood in the dirt yard while he unhitched the horses. The wind bit through her thin dress. She had left Silver Creek with nothing but the clothes on her back. Everything else, her few possessions, her mother's things, her father would have sold by now. "You coming?" Wyatt stood by the door, holding it open. She forced her legs to move. Inside the house was exactly what he had promised. Small, plain, clean. The main room held a wood stove, a table with 2 chairs, and a threadbare sofa that had seen better days. A kitchen area occupied one corner. 2 doors led off the main room. Bedrooms, she assumed. "That one is yours," Wyatt said, pointing to the door on the left. "I am on the right. There is a lock on your door. Inside lock." He clarified, seeing her confusion. "You can bolt it from the inside if you want." Clara stared at him. "Why would you?" "Because you should have a choice." He set her small bag down. When had he grabbed that from the wagon? And stepped back. "I know what people think this is, what they think I did. But you are not a prisoner here, Clara. You can lock that door every night if it makes you feel safer." She did not know what to say. This was not what she had expected. Not at all. "Are you hungry?" he asked. No, I do not think I could eat." "All right. I will make something anyway, in case you change your mind. Your room has fresh sheets, a quilt, a lamp. There is a creek about 50 yards behind the house if you want to wash up. Privy is out back." He paused, running a hand through his hair. "I am not good at this, at talking, at any of this. But if you need something, tell me. I will do my best." Then he walked away, leaving her standing in the middle of a strange house, married to a man she did not know, with a lock on her door, and no idea what came next. Clara did not sleep that night. She lay on the narrow bed, still in her wedding dress, because she had nothing else to wear, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the ranch. The wind against the walls, the creak of the house settling. Wyatt moving around in the next room. Footsteps, the scrape of a chair, the soft thud of boots hitting the floor. Then Milaman. She waited for her door to open, for him to test the lock, to demand his rights as her husband. That was what men did, was it not? That was what everyone in town expected. But the door stayed closed. Hours passed. Moonlight crept across the floor. And slowly, Clara began to realize that maybe, just maybe, Wyatt Harlan meant what he had said. As dawn light finally spilled through the small window, she heard him moving again. The front door opened and closed. She got up, her body stiff and aching, and peered through her window. Wyatt was in the corral working with a young horse. His movements were patient, methodical. The horse kept shying away, and Wyatt kept giving it space, never forcing, never rushing. Just waiting until the animal decided to trust him. Clara watched for a long time. She emerged from her room still in her wrinkled wedding dress, her hair a mess. Wyatt was at the stove cooking something that smelled like coffee and bacon. He glanced up when she appeared. "Morning." "Morning. Coffee is hot. Food is almost ready." He paused. "You need clothes. I can ride into town. See what Mrs. Hargrove has at the general store." "I do not have money." "I do. I cannot keep taking from you. You are my—" He stopped. "You need clothes, Clara. That is not negotiable." She wanted to argue, but he was right. She could not spend the rest of her life in a yellowed wedding gown. "Thank you," she said stiffly. They ate breakfast in awkward silence. The food was simple but good. Bacon, eggs, biscuits that were a little burnt on the bottom, but edible. Wyatt ate quickly, efficiently, like fuel rather than pleasure. "What do you do here?" Clara asked. "All day, I mean." "Ranch work. Tend the horses, fix fences, maintain the buildings. Hunting when we need meat. Firewood for winter." He shrugged. "It is a lot of work for one person." "Two now," she heard herself say. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "You do not have to. I'm not going to sit around doing nothing. I can work." "You ever worked a ranch before?" "No, but I can learn." Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. "All right then. Finish eating, and I will show you around." The ranch was bigger than it looked. Wyatt walked her through it all. The barn where he kept 6 horses, the chicken coop that desperately needed repair, the vegetable garden that had mostly gone to weeds, the spring-fed creek that provided their water. "I let things slide," he admitted, surveying the overgrown garden. "When you are alone, you focus on what keeps you alive. The rest does not seem to matter." "It matters now," Clara said. He glanced at her, and for the first time she saw something like hope in his eyes. They worked until sunset. Clara's hands blistered. Her back ached. The wedding dress was ruined, torn and dirt-stained beyond repair. But as she helped Wyatt mend a section of fence, passing him nails and holding boards steady, she felt something she had not expected. Purpose. That night, Wyatt made dinner again, venison stew with vegetables that were probably from a can. They ate at the small table, and the silence felt less oppressive than before. "Why did you do it?" Clara asked suddenly. Wyatt's spoon paused halfway to his mouth. "Do what?" "Pay my father's debt. Marry me. You could have had anyone. Someone who wanted to be here." He set down his spoon carefully. For a long moment, he just looked at his hands. Those scarred, capable hands that had been nothing but gentle all day. "I am 38 years old," he said finally. "I have been alone on this ranch for 12 years. Before that, I worked other people's land, saved every penny, dreamed of having something of my own. When I finally bought this place, I thought I had everything I needed. But it gets quiet, real quiet. And you start thinking maybe you were wrong. Maybe a man was not meant to live like this. Just him, and the work, and the silence." He met her eyes. "I did not go looking to buy a wife, Clara. I would not do that. But when your father came to me, desperate, begging, I saw a way to help someone, and maybe, if I was lucky, find some company, some purpose beyond just surviving. You pitied me." "No." His voice was firm. "I respected your situation. There is a difference." She wanted to believe him. God help her. She wanted to believe that this was not just another transaction, another way she had been used. "I will not lie to you," Wyatt continued. "I hope that maybe, over time, we could build something real. But I also knew you did not choose this, so I am giving you what I can. Time, space, safety. What happens after that? That is up to you." Clara's throat tightened. "What if I want to leave?" "Then you leave. I will give you money, a horse, whatever you need." "Just like that?" "Just like that. You are not my property, Clara. I do not care what that paper says." The days fell into a rhythm. Wyatt left before dawn to work the land. Clara tackled the house, cleaning years of bachelor neglect, organizing, making it feel less like a shelter and more like a home. They worked together in the evenings, repairing the chicken coop, weeding the garden, teaching her to ride the gentler horses. Wyatt was patient. He showed her how to curry the horses, how to collect eggs without spooking the hens, how to shoot a rifle just in case. He never touched her beyond the necessary, a hand to steady her when she climbed into the saddle, a brief clasp on her shoulder when she did something right. And every night she locked her door, and every night he let her. The town felt like a distant memory, and Clara began to think that maybe she could survive this, maybe even find some peace in it. Then Sunday came, and Wyatt announced they needed to go to church. "Why?" Clara asked, dread pooling in her stomach. "Because if we do not show up eventually, they will talk more than they already do." And because he hesitated. Because you should not have to hide. You did not do anything wrong. She wanted to refuse, wanted to stay in their isolated bubble where the world's judgment could not reach. But Wyatt was right. She could not hide forever. So she wore one of the simple dresses he had bought her, plain blue cotton that fit well enough, and they rode into Silver Creek together. The stares started before they even tied up the horses. Clara felt them like physical blows. The whispers, the pointed looks, the way conversation stopped when she passed. Mrs. Caldwell actually turned her back. The Miller boys made crude gestures until their mother slapped them quiet. In church, people shifted away from them, leaving their pew conspicuously empty except for the two of them. Pastor Reed's sermon was about redemption and forgiveness, but his eyes kept sliding to Clara like she was the sinner who needed saving. She kept her spine straight, her eyes forward. Wyatt sat beside her, solid and silent. After the service, as people gathered outside to socialize, Clara tried to make for the wagon, but Margaret Caldwell stepped into her path. "Well, well, Mrs. Harlan, how are you enjoying your new arrangement?" Clara stopped. Margaret was the banker's wife, a woman who had never worked a day in her life, but had opinions about everyone else's choices. "I am well, thank you." "I am sure you are. Must be quite comfortable having all your problems solved with one transaction." Margaret's smile was poisonous. "Tell me, does it bother you at all, being bought like livestock?" The words were designed to cut, and they did. Clara felt the anger rise, hot and sharp. "My problems were not solved," she said quietly. "They were traded for different ones, but at least now I am working for my keep instead of watching my father gamble it away." How noble. And Wyatt? He must be so pleased with his purchase. "That is enough." Wyatt's voice cut through the tension like a blade. He had appeared at Clara's side, his face hard. "We are leaving." "Oh, did I offend?" Margaret's eyes glittered. "I am just saying what everyone is thinking. That girl's father sold her, and you paid the price. It is not marriage. It is commerce." "You do not know what you are talking about," Wyatt said. "Do I not? Everyone knows you paid $2,500. That is not a debt settlement. That is a—" "It was a debt settlement," Wyatt interrupted. "Nothing more, nothing less. The marriage was Clara's choice." Margaret laughed. "Her choice? Is that what you tell yourself at night?" Clara's hands clenched into fists. She wanted to scream, to rage, to tear down the smug satisfaction on Margaret's face. But what would that change? These people had already decided who she was. "We are leaving," she said quietly, touching Wyatt's arm. They walked to the wagon in silence, ignoring the whispers that followed them like flies. Wyatt helped her up, his jaw tight with barely contained anger. The ride home was tense. Clara stared at the road, humiliation burning through her veins. She had known the town would judge her. She just had not realized how much it would hurt. "I am sorry," Wyatt said finally. "For what?" "You did not say those things. For putting you in a position where people can say them. You did not put me there. My father did." Still, he was quiet for a moment. "We do not have to go back to town. We can get supplies elsewhere, or I can go alone." "And let them think they won? That they drove me into hiding?" Clara shook her head. "No, I will not give them that satisfaction." Something like pride flickered across Wyatt's face. "All right then," but the damage was done. That night, Clara lay in her locked room and cried for the first time since the wedding. Not from fear or grief, but from the crushing weight of being reduced to a transaction, a price paid, a problem solved. She heard Wyatt moving in the next room, heard him pause by her door. He did not knock, did not speak, just stood there for a long moment before his footsteps retreated. The next morning, she found a cup of coffee waiting for her, still hot. A small kindness that said, "I know you are hurting, and I do not know how to help, but I am here." It was not enough to fix anything, but it was something. They went back to work. The ranch demanded it. There was always another fence to mend, another horse to train, another season to prepare for. And in the work, Clara found a strange comfort. Her hands learned the rhythm of ranch life. Her body grew stronger. Her mind slowly began to quiet. Wyatt taught her to rope, to track, to read the weather in the clouds. He was a good teacher, patient and thorough, never condescending. When she succeeded, he nodded his approval. When she failed, he showed her how to try again. They talked more. Small things at first. Observations about the horses, plans for the garden, memories of childhood that did not hurt too much to share. Wyatt spoke slowly, carefully, like words were a precious resource he had learned not to waste. "I had a sister once," he told her one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "Sarah. She was younger than me by 6 years. What happened to her?" "Fever. She was 12. I was 18, working a ranch 2 territories over. By the time I got the message and made it home, she was already buried." He stared at the horizon. "My parents blamed me. Said if I had been there, if I had helped instead of running off to chase my own dreams, maybe she would have lived. That is not fair. No, but grief is not fair." He glanced at her. "I left after that. Could not stand the way they looked at me. Spent the next 15 years moving from place to place, just saving money, trying to outrun the guilt. Finally bought this land. Thought I had found peace. Turns out you cannot outrun yourself." Clara wanted to reach for his hand to offer comfort, but the gulf between them still felt too wide, the boundaries too uncertain. "You are not running anymore," she said instead. "No," he agreed. "I guess I am not." The town felt like a distant memory, and Clara began to think that maybe she could survive this, maybe even find some peace in it. Then Sunday came, and Wyatt announced they needed to go to church. "Why?" Clara asked, dread pooling in her stomach. "Because if we do not show up eventually, they will talk more than they already do." And because he hesitated, "Because you should not have to hide. You did not do anything wrong." She wanted to refuse, wanted to stay in their isolated bubble where the world's judgment could not reach. But Wyatt was right. She could not hide forever. So she wore one of the simple dresses he had bought her, plain blue cotton that fit well enough, and they rode into Silver Creek together. The stares started before they even tied up the horses. Clara felt them like physical blows. The whispers, the pointed looks, the way conversation stopped when she passed. Mrs. Caldwell actually turned her back. The Miller boys made crude gestures until their mother slapped them quiet. In church, people shifted away from them, leaving their pew conspicuously empty except for the two of them. Pastor Reed's sermon was about redemption and forgiveness, but his eyes kept sliding to Clara like she was the sinner who needed saving. She kept her spine straight, her eyes forward. Wyatt sat beside her, solid and silent. After the service, as people gathered outside to socialize, Clara tried to make for the wagon, but Margaret Caldwell stepped into her path. "Well, well, Mrs. Harlan, how are you enjoying your new arrangement?" Clara stopped. Margaret was the banker's wife, a woman who had never worked a day in her life, but had opinions about everyone else's choices. "I am well, thank you." "I am sure you are. Must be quite comfortable having all your problems solved with one transaction." Margaret's smile was poisonous. "Tell me, does it bother you at all, being bought like livestock?" The words were designed to cut, and they did. Clara felt the anger rise, hot and sharp. "My problems were not solved," she said quietly. "They were traded for different ones. But at least now I am working for my keep, instead of watching my father gamble it away." "How noble! And Wyatt? He must be so pleased with his purchase." "That is enough." Wyatt's voice cut through the tension like a blade. He had appeared at Clara's side, his face hard. "We are leaving." "Oh, did I offend?" Margaret's eyes glittered. "I am just saying what everyone is thinking. That girl's father sold her, and you paid the price. It is not marriage. It is commerce." "You do not know what you are talking about," Wyatt said. "Do I not? Everyone knows you paid $2,500. That is not a debt settlement. That is a—" "It was a debt settlement," Wyatt interrupted. "Nothing more, nothing less. The marriage was Clara's choice." Margaret laughed. "Her choice? Is that what you tell yourself at night?" Clara's hands clenched into fists. She wanted to scream, to rage, to tear down the smug satisfaction on Margaret's face. But what would that change? These people had already decided who she was. "We are leaving," she said quietly, touching Wyatt's arm. They walked to the wagon in silence, ignoring the whispers that followed them like flies. Wyatt helped her up, his jaw tight with barely contained anger. The ride home was tense. Clara stared at the road, humiliation burning through her veins. She had known the town would judge her. She just had not realized how much it would hurt. "I am sorry," Wyatt said finally. "For what? You did not say those things. For putting you in a position where people can say them. You did not put me there. My father did." Still, he was quiet for a moment. "We do not have to go back to town. We can get supplies elsewhere, or I can go alone. And let them think they won? That they drove me into hiding?" Clara shook her head. "No, I will not give them that satisfaction." Something like pride flickered across Wyatt's face. "All right then," but the damage was done. That night, Clara lay in her locked room and cried for the first time since the wedding. Not from fear or grief, but from the crushing weight of being reduced to a transaction, a price paid, a problem solved. She heard Wyatt moving in the next room, heard him pause by her door. He did not knock, did not speak, just stood there for a long moment before his footsteps retreated. The next morning she found a cup of coffee waiting for her, still hot. A small kindness that said, "I know you are hurting, and I do not know how to help, but I am here." It was not enough to fix anything, but it was something. They went back to work. The ranch demanded it. There was always another fence to mend, another horse to train, another season to prepare for. And in the work, Clara found a strange comfort. Her hands learned the rhythm of ranch life. Her body grew stronger. Her mind slowly began to quiet. Wyatt taught her to rope, to track, to read the weather in the clouds. He was a good teacher, patient and thorough, never condescending. When she succeeded, he nodded his approval. When she failed, he showed her how to try again. They talked more. Small things at first. Observations about the horses, plans for the garden, memories of childhood that did not hurt too much to share. Wyatt spoke slowly, carefully, like words were a precious resource he had learned not to waste. "I had a sister once," he told her one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "Sarah. She was younger than me by 6 years. What happened to her? Fever. She was 12. I was 18, working a ranch 2 territories over. By the time I got the message and made it home, she was already buried." He stared at the horizon. "My parents blamed me, said if I had been there, if I had helped instead of running off to chase my own dreams, maybe she would have lived. That is not fair. No, but grief is not fair." He glanced at her. "I left after that. Could not stand the way they looked at me. Spent the next 15 years moving from place to place, just saving money, trying to outrun the guilt. Finally bought this land. Thought I had found peace. Turns out you cannot outrun yourself." Clara wanted to reach for his hand to offer comfort, but the gulf between them still felt too wide, the boundaries too uncertain. "You are not running anymore," she said instead. "No," he agreed. "I guess I am not." Winter arrived with a vengeance. The pass closed, sealing them off from the world. Snow piled high against the house. Temperatures dropped so low that water froze solid in the basin overnight. But the house was warm. Wyatt had stocked plenty of firewood, and they had prepared the best they could. The days fell into a new rhythm. Indoor work when the weather was too brutal. Outdoor work when it cleared enough to tend the animals. They were trapped together and nowhere to hide from each other. Clara stopped locking her door. It was not a grand decision or dramatic moment. One night, she just did not. And when morning came and she realized what she had forgotten, she found she did not care. Wyatt never mentioned it, never tested it, but something between them eased, like a rope that had been pulled taut finally getting some slack. They talked more in those long winter evenings, shared stories, dreams, fears. Wyatt told her about his years drifting, the jobs he had worked, the places he had seen. Clara told him about her mother, about the woman she had been before the sickness took her. "She would have hated this," Clara said one night, staring into the fire. "Me married like this. She always wanted better for me." "What did you want?" Wyatt asked. "I do not know. I never really thought about it. There was school, then taking care of mother, then trying to keep father from destroying everything. I never had time to want things for myself. You have time now." "Do I? I am still trapped, just in a different way." "Are you?" He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "Clara, you can leave. When the pass opens, if you want to go, I will help you. I meant that." "And go where? Back to Silver Creek, where everyone thinks I am bought property? To another town where I would be a woman alone with no prospects?" She shook her head. "There is no freedom for women like me, Wyatt. Only choices between different cages." "Then maybe we build something different here. Not a cage, something else." "Like what?" "I do not know yet, but we have time to figure it out." And the months crawled by. December gave way to January, then February. The snow never seemed to stop. Some days Wyatt had to dig a tunnel just to reach the barn. But inside the house, something was growing. Clara caught herself laughing at Wyatt's dry observations. Wyatt smiled more, the lines around his eyes deepening with something other than worry. They cooked together, cleaned together, sat by the fire together, in comfortable silence that did not feel empty. One night, as a blizzard howled outside, Clara looked up from the shirt she was mending to find Wyatt watching her. "What?" she asked. Nothing. Just you look content. Do I? Yeah. She thought about it. Thought about the girl who had stood on those courthouse steps, terrified and furious. That girl felt like a stranger now. Maybe I am, she admitted. Is that wrong? Given how this started? No, Wyatt said firmly. You are allowed to be happy, Clara. Even here. Even with me. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. I am going to check the horses, Wyatt said abruptly, standing. He grabbed his coat and disappeared into the storm before she could respond. Clara sat alone, her heart beating faster than it should. Things were changing. She could feel it. The shift in how she looked at Wyatt, how her chest tightened when he smiled, how she had started thinking of this place as ours instead of his. It terrified her because caring meant risking, and she had already lost so much. And spring came slowly to the mountains. The snow melted in patches, revealing dead grass and muddy ground. The pass remained closed, but Wyatt said it would open soon. A few more weeks, he told her. Then we will be able to get to town again. Clara nodded, but something twisted in her gut. She did not want to go back to town, did not want to face those stares and whispers again. But Wyatt was right. They needed supplies, and hiding would not change anything. The pass opened. They prepared for the trip like soldiers preparing for battle, gathering their list, steeling themselves for confrontation. The ride to Silver Creek felt different this time. The landscape had changed. Green pushing through brown. Flowers beginning to bloom. Everything looked new, like the world was starting over. If only they could wait too. Town was busier than they expected. Apparently, everyone had the same idea. Stock up after the long winter. Mrs. Hargrove's general store was packed, and they had to wait their turn. That is when Clara heard it. Well, heard the debt was actually $4,500, not $2,500. Can you imagine? Her head snapped up. Two women stood near the fabric section, talking in voices that were not quite whispers. Where did you hear that? The other asked. From Clara's father himself. He was drunk at the saloon last week, bragging about how he had gotten Wyatt to pay twice what the bank wanted. Said he pocketed the difference. Clara's vision tunneled. The room tilted. Clara? Wyatt's hand was on her arm. What is wrong? She could not speak, could not breathe. Her father had a, I need air, she gasped, pushing past people toward the door. Outside, she bent over, hands on her knees, trying not to be sick. Wyatt followed, his face etched with concern. What happened? My father. The words came out strangled. He lied about the debt. He took your money, and I know. She straightened, staring at him. What? Wyatt's expression was carefully neutral. The bank told me the real amount when I paid it off. $2,100. Your father asked for $4,500 total. And you paid it anyway? I paid the debt to the bank. The rest I gave to your father because he said you would need it. For clothes, for settling in. I figured he would give it to you. He did not. Clara's voice was hollow. He kept it, gambled it, and let everyone think you paid $4,500 for me. Let them think I was worth that much to you. You are worth that much. More. Do not, she held up a hand. Do not try to make this better. My father stole from you, used me to do it. And I... Her voice cracked. I am so tired of being currency. Wyatt stepped closer. You are not currency. Not to me. Not ever. Then what am I? The question hung between them, huge and impossible. Before Wyatt could answer, someone cleared their throat behind them. They turned to find Pastor Reed standing there, looking uncomfortable. I'm sorry to intrude, he said, but there is going to be a gathering at the church tonight. A community meeting. I think you both should attend." "Why?" Wyatt asked flatly. "Because there are things that need to be said about your marriage, about the circumstances." He met Clara's eyes. "And because you deserve the chance to speak for your own self." Clara wanted to refuse, wanted to run back to the ranch and never set foot in this town again. But she was so damn tired of running. "We will be there," she heard herself say. Wyatt looked at her sharply, but she shook her head. Whatever was coming, they would face it together. The church was packed that evening, every pew filled, people standing along the walls. Clara and Wyatt sat in their usual spot, alone, isolated. Pastor Reed stood at the front, his Bible closed. "Thank you all for coming. We are here tonight because there has been talk in this town. Judgment passed without full understanding, and I believe it is time we addressed it directly." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Wyatt Harlan and Clara Bennett. Clara Harlan now. Their marriage has been the subject of much speculation. Some have called it improper. Others have suggested it was a transaction rather than a union. I have heard the word bought used more than once. He paused, letting that sink in. But I wonder how many of us know the full truth of what happened. "We know enough," someone called out. "Margaret Caldwell, of course." "Do you?" Pastor Reed's gaze was sharp. "Then, tell me, Mrs. Caldwell, what exactly do you know?" Margaret stood, righteous and sure. "I know that Clara's father owed money, that Wyatt paid it, that they married immediately after. The math is not complicated." "No, it is not," Clara said, surprising herself by standing. "But you are missing some numbers." All eyes turned to her. Wyatt reached for her hand, but she stepped into the aisle, facing the congregation alone. "My father owed the bank $2,100. Wyatt paid that debt, not to buy me, but because my father begged him to. The marriage was my father's idea, his condition. And yes, I agreed to it, because I had no other choice." "Exactly," Margaret said. "No choice? That makes you a victim, dear. Does it?" Clara's voice grew stronger. "Or does it make me a survivor? I did not choose my father's gambling. I did not choose his debts. But I chose to marry Wyatt instead of watching everything burn. I chose survival. And if that makes me weak in your eyes, then you have never been desperate enough to understand. You are twisting this, am I? Tell me, Mrs. Caldwell, when you married your husband, did you love him? Or did you love his bank and his standing in this community?" Clara took a step forward. "Most women in this town married for security, for position, for a house, and a name. How is that different from what I did? Just because my circumstances were more obvious does not make them less valid." The church had gone silent on. "The difference," Clara continued, her voice carrying to every corner, "is that I am honest about it. I did not pretend it was a love match. I did not dress it up in pretty words and white lace. I made a practical choice to survive. And for that, you have called me property, livestock, a transaction." Her hands trembled, but she did not stop. "But here's what you do not know, what none of you bothered to ask. That man sitting there," she pointed to Wyatt, "gave me something none of you did. Respect, choice, freedom. He put a lock on my door and told me I could use it. He gave me space and time and never once demanded what you all assumed he bought." Wyatt was staring at her, his expression unreadable. "So yes," Clara said, her voice softer now, but no less fierce. "I married for survival, but I stayed because I found something better than survival. I found dignity, and if that offends you, if my honesty makes you uncomfortable, then maybe you should ask yourself why." She sat down, her heart hammering. The silence stretched. Then someone in the back started clapping. Slowly, others joined. Not everyone, not Margaret Caldwell, but enough. Thomas Whitaker, Mrs. Hargrove, even a few of the older women who had been the worst gossips. Pastor Reed smiled. "Thank you, Clara. I think that needed to be said." He turned to the congregation. This community prides itself on faith and charity. But lately, I have seen more judgment than grace, more gossip than compassion. Perhaps it is time we all examine our own marriages, our own choices, before we cast stones at others. The meeting did not change everything. Some people still whispered, still judged. But as Clara and Wyatt walked out of that church, the weight felt lighter. "That was brave," Wyatt said quietly as they reached the wagon. "That was necessary. Still brave." They rode home under a sky full of stars, and for the first time since the wedding, Clara felt like she could breathe. The ride back to the ranch felt different. The darkness pressed in around them, but it was not oppressive anymore. Wyatt kept glancing at her, like he was seeing someone new. Clara kept her eyes on the road ahead, her hands still shaking from what she had done. "You did not have to defend me like that," Wyatt said finally. "I was not defending you. I was defending myself." Still nothing. She turned to look at him. "I am tired of being silent while people write my story for me. If they're going to talk about me anyway, they might as well hear the truth." Wyatt's mouth quirked. Not quite a smile, but close. "You are stronger than I gave you credit for. You gave me plenty of credit. You just did not know I had it in me to fight back. Neither did I, honestly." They lapsed into silence again, but it was comfortable now. The kind of quiet that comes when two people understand each other without needing words. When they reached the ranch, Wyatt helped her down from the wagon. His hands lingered on her waist a moment longer than necessary, and Clara felt her breath catch. Their eyes met in the moonlight, and something unspoken passed between them. Then Wyatt stepped back, clearing his throat. "I will put the horses up. You should get inside. Warm up." "Wyatt, we can talk tomorrow, when we are both when we have had time to think." He walked away before she could argue, leaving her standing in the yard with her heart doing strange things in her chest. Inside, the house felt emptier than usual. Clara lit the lamps, started a fire in the stove, went through all the familiar motions. But her mind kept circling back to that moment, the way Wyatt had looked at her, the way her body had responded. She was falling for him. The realization hit her like cold water. Somewhere between the locked door and the unlocked one, between winter and spring, she had stopped seeing Wyatt as the man who had bought her way out of debt and started seeing him as just Wyatt. Complicated, lonely, kind Wyatt, who gave her space when she needed it and stood beside her when she did not. It terrified her because caring about someone meant they could hurt you, and Clara had been hurt enough for one lifetime. She was still sitting by the fire when Wyatt came back in, smelling like hay and horses. He stopped when he saw her, seemed to consider saying something, then just nodded and headed for his room. "Wyatt, wait." He turned, his hand on the doorframe. Clara stood, wrapping her arms around herself. "Thank you for tonight, for letting me speak, for not being the man everyone assumed you were." His expression softened. "I am not a good man, Clara. I am just trying to do right by you. That makes you better than most." He held her gaze for a long moment, and the air between them felt charged, heavy with possibility. Then he nodded once and disappeared into his room, closing the door softly behind him. Clara stood there for a long time, staring at that closed door and wondering what would happen if she knocked. She did not. Not that night. But something had shifted between them, and they both knew it. The next morning dawned bright and clear. Clara woke early, dressed quickly, and found Wyatt already in the kitchen making coffee. They moved around each other with practiced ease now. She grabbed the eggs, he found the skillet. They worked together like they had been doing this for years instead of months. "We need to talk about your father," Wyatt said as they sat down to eat. Clara's stomach clenched. "What about him? He stole from me." "That is not nothing." "I know, and I am sorry. Do not apologize for him." Wyatt's voice was firm. "His actions are not your responsibility, but we need to decide what to do about it. What can we do? The money is gone, gambled away probably. That is not the point. The point is he used you, used both of us, and he needs to understand that there are consequences." Clara stared at her plate. She knew Wyatt was right. Her father had betrayed them both, had taken advantage of Wyatt's kindness and her desperation. But he was still her father, the only family she had left. "What did you have in mind?" she asked quietly. "I want to confront him, make it clear that he cannot come around here asking for more. Because he will, Clara. Men like that always do." She knew he was right about that, too. Her father had a way of burning through money and then coming back for more, full of promises he never kept. "All right," she said. "We will talk to him together." Wyatt nodded, satisfied. They finished breakfast in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Later that morning, as they worked in the garden planting vegetables for the summer, Clara found herself watching Wyatt. The way his hands moved through the soil, patient and sure, the concentration on his face, the quiet competence of everything he did. "You are staring," he said, without looking up. "Was I?" Yeah. Now he did look at her, and there was something in his eyes that made her pulse quicken. "Any particular reason?" Clara felt her cheeks heat. "Just thinking." "About?" "About how different this is from what I expected." "Different how?" She sat back on her heels, considering. "When I married you, I thought I was trading one prison for another, my father's house for yours. But this does not feel like a prison." "What does it feel like?" "I do not know yet, but it is not that." Wyatt was quiet for a moment, his hands still in the dirt. "I am glad," he said finally, "that it is not a prison. That is never what I wanted." "What did you want?" He looked at her directly then, and the honesty in his face took her breath away. "A partner. Someone to share the work and the silence, and maybe if I was lucky, something more. But I did not want to force it, did not want you to feel obligated. And now? Now I am still waiting to see what you want." The question hung between them, huge and terrifying. What did she want? She had spent so long not having choices that she barely knew how to make one when it mattered. "I want," she started, then stopped. "I do not know. I am still figuring it out." "That is fair." Wyatt went back to planting, giving her space. "Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." They worked until noon, then broke for lunch. As they ate leftover stew from the night before, Clara found herself studying Wyatt again, really looking at him. He was not handsome in the conventional sense. His face was too weathered, his features too rough. But there was something solid about him, something real. And the way he treated her, with respect and patience, and a gentleness that seemed at odds with his hard exterior, that meant more than any pretty face ever could. "Stop it," Wyatt said, amused. "Stop what?" "Looking at me like you are trying to solve a puzzle. Maybe you are a puzzle. I am really not. What you see is what you get. And what I see is a man who pays off strangers' debts, marries a girl he does not know, and gives her a lock on her door. That is not exactly simple." Wyatt set down his spoon. "You were not a stranger. I had seen you in town before. You were always kind to people, even when they did not deserve it. When your father came to me, I remembered that. Remembered thinking you deserved better than what life had given you. So you decided to save me? No, I decided to give you an option. There is a difference. Clara felt something tighten in her chest. You are a better man than you think you are. And you are a stronger woman than you give yourself credit for. They held each other's gaze for a long moment, and Clara felt the pull between them growing stronger. It would be so easy to lean across this table, to close the distance, to find out what his lips tasted like beyond that brief, impersonal wedding kiss. But she was still scared. Still not sure if what she was feeling was real, or just gratitude, dressed up as something else. So she looked away first, and the moment passed. That afternoon, they rode out to check the fence line on the north pasture. It was work that required 2 people, one to hold the post steady, while the other drove them in. They fell into an easy rhythm, and by the time the sun started sinking toward the mountains, they had repaired nearly a quarter-mile of fence. Not bad for a day's work, Wyatt said, surveying their progress. My hands are going to hate me tomorrow. They will toughen up. Mine did. Clara looked at her palms, blistered and red, but stronger than they had been. Everything about me has toughened up since I got here. Is that a bad thing? No, just different. They rode back to the ranch as the sky turned pink and gold. The horses knew the way home, so Wyatt let the reins go slack and turned to Clara. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you regret it? Marrying me? The question caught her off guard. She thought about it. Really thought about it. The fear, the humiliation, the months of uncertainty, but also the safety, the purpose, the slow building of something she did not have a name for yet. No, she said finally. I do not regret it. Do you? Not even a little. The simplicity of his answer made her throat tight. Why not? I have not exactly been easy to live with. You have been honest. That is worth more than easy. They reached the barn, and Wyatt helped her down. This time, when his hand circled her waist, he did not immediately let go. Clara's breath caught as she looked up at him, close enough to count the gold flecks in his brown eyes. Clara, he started, his voice rough. A horse whinnied sharply, breaking the moment. They both turned to see one of the mares pacing in her stall, agitated. Something is wrong, Wyatt said, immediately switching into work mode. He released Clara and moved toward the stall. Easy, girl, easy. Clara followed, peering over the stall door. The mare was sweating, her sides heaving. She is going to foal, Wyatt said, his voice tight with concern. But it is too early. She has got another month at least. What do? We wait and hope. He stripped off his jacket, rolling up his sleeves. This could take a while. You should go inside, get some rest. I am not leaving you out here alone. He looked at her, surprised. It might be a long night. Then we will have a long night together. Something in Wyatt's expression shifted. Gratitude, maybe, or relief at not being alone. He nodded once, and they settled in to wait. The hours crawled by. Wyatt stayed with the mare, murmuring to her, checking her progress. Clara brought blankets and coffee, kept the lanterns filled, and tried to be useful without getting in the way. Around midnight, the mare went down. Wyatt moved quickly, his hands gentle but efficient, as he helped guide the foal into the world. Clara watched, transfixed by the raw reality of it. The blood and sweat and struggle of bringing new life into existence. When it was over, when the foal lay breathing in the straw and the mare was nuzzling her baby, Wyatt sat back on his heels, exhausted. Is she okay? Clara asked softly. I think so. The foal is small, but breathing well. We will know more in the morning. He stood, wiping his bloody hands on a rag. His shirt was soaked with sweat, his hair falling in his eyes. He looked completely worn out, and somehow more real than anyone she had ever seen. "You did good," Clara said. "We did good. I could not have managed alone." They walked back to the house together, too tired to talk. Inside, Wyatt washed up at the basin, while Clara made fresh coffee neither of them probably needed. "Thank you," Wyatt said, drying his hands. "For staying, for helping. That is what partners do, right? Help each other?" He went still. "Is that what we are? Partners?" Clara's heart hammered. This was it. The moment where she could step back, keep things safe and undefined, or she could step forward into uncertainty. "I think we could be," she said carefully, "if we both wanted it." "I want it." No hesitation in his voice. "I have wanted it since the day you stood up in that church and defended yourself. Maybe before that." "Wyatt, let me finish." He took a step closer. "I know this started wrong. I know you did not choose me. Not really. But somewhere along the way, I started hoping that maybe you could choose me to me. I mean, not out of obligation or gratitude or because you have got nowhere else to go, but because you want to." Clara's eyes burned. "I am scared." "Of what?" "Of this being real, of caring about you and then losing you. I have lost everyone I ever loved." "You will not lose me." He reached for her hand, his touch gentle. "I am not going anywhere, and neither are you, unless you want to." She looked down at their joined hands, his scarred and work-roughened, hers blistered and getting stronger every day. Two people who had been alone, learning how to be together. "I do not want to go," she whispered. "That is what scares me. I should want to leave, to find my own way, but I do not. I want to stay here with you, and I do not know if that makes me weak or it makes you human." Wyatt lifted her chin with his free hand, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Wanting connection does not make you weak, Clara. It makes you brave. Because you are choosing it despite everything that has happened. Despite every reason you have not to trust anyone. Do you trust me? With my life?" The certainty in his voice undid her. She rose on her toes and kissed him. Not the brief, impersonal touch from their wedding, but a real kiss. His lips were warm and slightly chapped, and he tasted like coffee and something earthy she could not name. For a heartbeat, Wyatt did not react. Then his arms came around her, pulling her close, and he kissed her back like she was air, and he had been drowning. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Clara pressed her forehead to his chest. His heart was hammering as fast as hers. "We should probably talk about this," Wyatt said, his voice unsteady. "Probably. Figure out what it means, where we go from here. Probably." Neither of them moved. "Or," Wyatt said softly, his hand stroking her hair, "we could just see what happens. No rules, no expectations. Just us figuring it out together." Clara looked up at him. "I would like that." He smiled, a real smile that transformed his whole face, and kissed her again. Slower this time. Sweeter. Like they had all the time in the world. When they finally went to bed that night, Clara's door stayed open. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling like everything had shifted. The walls between them were coming down, and she was not sure what would replace them. But for the first time since her mother died, she felt something like hope. The next few weeks passed in a blur of work and stolen moments. They did not talk about what was happening between them. It felt too fragile, too new. But the touches lingered now, hands brushing as they passed dishes, shoulders touching as they sat on the porch. Small intimacies that said more than words. The foal survived, growing stronger every day. They named her Hope because Clara said she had given them that. That is sentimental, Wyatt said, but he was smiling. So you got a problem with that? No, I think it is perfect. They rode into town twice more that month, once for supplies, once because Wyatt had business at the bank. Each time, Clara held her head high. Some people still whispered, but others nodded respectfully. The tide was turning, slowly. Thomas Whitaker stopped them outside the general store one day. I heard what you said at the church, he told Clara. Took guts. My sister wanted me to tell you she admires you for it. Tell her thank you. After he left, Wyatt squeezed her hand. See, you are changing minds. One person at a time, maybe. That is how it works. But not everyone was convinced. Margaret Caldwell still sneered when they passed. The Miller boys still made crude jokes. And Clara's father, they had not seen him since that night in the saloon. But she knew it was only a matter of time. That time came on a Tuesday afternoon in late April. Clara was in the garden when she heard hoofbeats. She looked up to see a familiar decrepit horse stumbling up the road, and her stomach dropped. Her father looked worse than she remembered. Thinner, grayer, with eyes that could not quite focus. He swayed in the saddle as he approached, and Clara realized he was drunk. At 3 in the afternoon. There is my girl, he slurred, trying to smile. Been looking for you. Wyatt appeared from the barn, his face hard. Get off my land, Earl. Your land. This is where my daughter lives. I got a right. You got no rights here. Wyatt's voice was ice. You gave those up when you lied to me and stole my money. Earl's face flushed. I did not steal nothing. That was payment for a— Do not! Clara stepped forward, her hands shaking with anger. Do not you dare finish that sentence. Her father blinked at her, confused. Clara, honey, I just need a little help. A loan to get back on my feet. You are my daughter. You owe me. I owe you nothing. The words came out cold and clear. You sold me to pay your debts. You took Wyatt's money and lied about it. You let the whole town think I was worth $4,500 when you pocketed half of that yourself. You owe me, Father. You owe me a childhood that was not spent cleaning up your messes. You owe me a mother who might still be alive if you had not drunk away the money for her medicine. You owe me a life. Earl's face crumpled. I never meant. You never mean it. That is the problem. You never mean to gamble, never mean to drink, never mean to hurt anyone. But you do it anyway, over and over, and everyone else pays the price. I am your father. You are a stranger who shares my blood. That is all you have been for years. Clara, get off our land, Wyatt said quietly, moving to stand beside Clara. And do not come back. If you do, I will have the sheriff remove you. Are we clear? Earl looked between them, seeing no weakness, no opening. His shoulders sagged. You have changed, he said to Clara. You used to be such a sweet girl. I grew up. You should try it. He turned his horse and rode away without another word. Clara watched him go, feeling nothing but a hollow kind of relief. You okay? Wyatt asked. I do not know. Ask me later. He put his arm around her shoulders, and she leaned into him, grateful for the solid warmth of his presence. They stood like that for a long time, watching the dust settle on the empty road. That night, Clara could not sleep. She kept replaying the confrontation, wondering if she had been too harsh, too cruel. But every time she started to feel guilty, she remembered her mother's face, pale and sick, while her father gambled away the money that might have saved her. Around midnight, she gave up on sleep and went to the kitchen. Wyatt was already there, sitting at the table with a cup of coffee. Could not sleep either? She asked. Nope. She poured her own coffee and sat across from him. Do you think I was too hard on him? No, you were honest. That is not the same as being cruel. He looked so broken. He has been broken for years, Clara. That is not your fault, and it is not your responsibility to fix him. She knew he was right, but it still hurt. He is all the family I have left. No. Wyatt reached across the table, taking her hand. He is not. You have me now, if you want that. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. I want that. I'm just scared of what it means. It means you are not alone anymore. Neither of us are. She came around the table and climbed into his lap, burying her face in his neck. Wyatt's arms came around her, holding her tight, while she cried for the father she had never really had, and the family she had lost. When the tears finally stopped, she pulled back to look at him. His eyes were soft with understanding, and something else. Something that made her heart skip. I love you, she said. The words surprised her as much as they seemed to surprise him. I do not know when it happened, but it did, and I needed you to know. Wyatt's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing away the last of her tears. I love you too. Have for a while now. I was just waiting for you to catch up. She laughed, watery and relieved. Arrogant. Honest. And then he kissed her, and Clara stopped thinking altogether. Later, much later, they lay together in Wyatt's bed. The first time she had been in his room. It was sparse and plain, just like the rest of the house, but it felt right being here with him. Tell me something true, Clara said, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. What kind of true? Anything. Something I do not know about you. Wyatt was quiet for some moment, his fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder. I never thought I would have this, he said finally. Someone to share my life with. I convinced myself I did not need it, that I was fine alone. But I was lying to myself. I was lonely, Clara. So lonely I could barely stand it some days. You are not anymore? Not even a little bit. She smiled against his chest. Me either. They fell asleep like that, tangled together. The darkness outside held at bay by something stronger than fear. The next morning brought rain, a steady downpour that turned the dirt roads to mud and kept them inside. They spent the day doing indoor chores, cooking together, talking about nothing and everything. We should think about the future, Wyatt said as they sat by the fire that evening. Make some plans. What kind of plans? Practical ones. The ranch could support more livestock if we expand the pastures. We could hire help eventually. Turn this into something bigger. You want to build an empire? I want to build a life. There is a difference. Clara considered this. What about me? What do I want? I do not know. What do you want? It was the same question he had asked before, but this time she had an answer. I want to matter. I want to be more than just someone's wife or someone's daughter. I want to do something that is mine. Then do it. Whatever it is, I will support you. Just like that? Just like that. She thought about it, really thought about what she wanted beyond survival, beyond safety. I want to raise horses. Really raise them, I mean. Breed them, train them, sell them. There is good money in it, and I am getting good at the work. Wyatt's eyes lit up. That is a solid idea. We have got the land, the start of a breeding stock. We would need capital to expand, but we could do it. Together. Together, he agreed. They talked late into the night, planning and dreaming. For the first time in her life, Clara felt like she was building something instead of just surviving, and it felt incredible. The rain continued for days, turning the world into a muddy mess. When it finally cleared, they had work piled up, fences to check, animals to tend, mud to shovel. They tackled it together, falling back into their rhythm. But something had changed. They worked as true partners now, making decisions together, supporting each other's ideas. The walls between them were gone, replaced by something solid and real. "You know," Clara said one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, "this is not how I thought my life would turn out. Better or worse? Different, but yeah, better. Much better." Wyatt pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "Same here." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn from gold to pink to purple. In the distance, Hope ran circles in the pasture, her legs still gangly, but growing stronger every day. "We should go to town soon," Wyatt said. "Show our faces, buy supplies, let people see that we are doing fine. Together, always together," Clara smiled. The town did not scare her anymore. Nothing did, really. She had faced down her father, claimed her voice, and found love in the last place she expected. Whatever came next, she could handle it. They had each other, and that was enough. But having each other did not make the world kinder. They rode into Silver Creek the following Saturday, needing supplies before the summer heat set in for good. The town was busy, farmers selling produce, women shopping for fabric, men gathered outside the saloon trading news and whiskey. Clara felt the familiar prickle of attention as they hitched the wagon, but she kept her chin up. "I will handle the feed order," Wyatt said. "You want to get the household supplies?" "Sure. Meet back here in an hour." He hesitated like he did not want to let her go alone, but Clara touched his arm. "I will be fine. I know you will." He kissed her forehead, right there in the middle of Main Street where anyone could see, and headed toward the feed store. Clara walked into Mrs. Hargrove's general store with her list clutched in her hand. Mrs. Hargrove looked up from the counter, her expression neutral. "Mrs. Harlan, what can I get you?" The use of her married name felt like progress, small but real. Clara handed over the list. "These items, please, and I would like to look at your fabric selection." "For what purpose?" "New curtains. The ones we have are falling apart." Mrs. Hargrove's eyebrows rose slightly. "Making a home, are you?" "Trying to." Something shifted in the older woman's face. Not quite warmth, but not hostility either. "The calico is on sale, good quality, holds up well to washing." "I will take a look, thank you." Clara was examining a bolt of blue-checked fabric when she heard the voice behind her. My. Playing house now." She did not need to turn around to know it was Margaret Caldwell. Clara took a breath, steadying herself, then faced the banker's wife. "Shopping, actually. Same as you." Margaret's smile was sharp. "I heard your father came by the ranch, caused quite a scene from what I understand. Must be embarrassing having family like that. Family is complicated. I am sure you understand." "Oh, I do. But then my family did not sell me to pay gambling debts." The words were meant to wound, and they did. But Clara had learned something in the past months. Pain did not have to mean defeat. "No," she said evenly. "Your family just married you off to the richest man available, regardless of whether you loved him. At least I am honest about my circumstances. Can you say the same?" Margaret's face flushed red. "How dare you?" "I dare because I have got nothing left to lose." Clara stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You can judge me all you want, Margaret. You can whisper and sneer and make your little comments, but at the end of the day, I go home to a man who respects me, who sees me as a partner, not property. Can you say the same about your husband? Or is that why you are so bitter? Because you see what I have, and realize your money did not buy you half as much." Margaret's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Before she could respond, Mrs. Hargrove called from the counter. "Mrs. Harlan, your order is ready." Clara turned away, leaving Margaret sputtering behind her. Her hand shook as she paid for the supplies, but she kept her voice steady. "The calico, too. 6 yards." Mrs. Hargrove measured and cut the fabric without comment. But as she wrapped it, she said quietly, "That needed saying. Been thinking it myself for years." Clara looked up, surprised. "Margaret Caldwell has made life difficult for more than a few women in this town," Mrs. Hargrove continued, her voice low. "Always judging, always finding fault. It is about time someone stood up to her. I probably just made things worse for myself. Maybe. Or maybe you showed people they do not have to be afraid of her." Mrs. N. Hargrove handed over the wrapped fabric. "Either way, good for you." Outside, Clara loaded her purchases into the wagon, her heart still racing. She had made an enemy today, a powerful one, but she had also stood her ground. That had to count for something. "You look like you have been in a fight," Wyatt said, appearing with sacks of feed slung over his shoulder. "Just a small war of words." "With who?" "Margaret Caldwell." Wyatt's jaw tightened. "What did she say?" "The usual. But I said some things back. Probably things I should not have." "Good." Clara blinked. "Good?" "Good. She has had it coming for a long time." He loaded the feed into the wagon, then turned to her. "You are not the same girl who married me months ago. You are stronger now, meaner when you need to be. I am proud of you." "Even if it causes problems?" "Especially then. Being kind is easy when there is no cost. Standing up for yourself when it might hurt, that takes real courage." They climbed into the wagon, and Wyatt took the reins. But before they could leave, Thomas Whitaker jogged up, slightly out of breath. "Mrs. Harlan, wait. I need to tell you something." Clara leaned down. "What is it?" "There is going to be another church gathering tomorrow night. Word is, Margaret is pushing for it. She is telling people you disrespected her, that you are getting too big for your station." Wyatt's hand tightened on the reins. "Let her talk." "It is not just talk," Thomas said urgently. "She has got the women's committee riled up. They are saying you are a bad influence, that you are encouraging wives to disrespect their husbands. It is stupid, I know, but it could turn ugly," Clara finished. Her stomach sank. "What do they want?" "I do not know, but I thought you should know it is coming." "Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate the warning." He nodded and stepped back. Wyatt snapped the reins, and they headed out of town at a faster pace than usual. "We do not have to go," Wyatt said once they were clear of Silver Creek. "To the gathering, I mean. We can ignore it." "And let them paint whatever picture they want?" "No. They are going to talk about me. I should be there. Clara. I am tired of hiding, Wyatt. Tired of letting other people define who I am. If they want to confront me, fine, but I will not make it easy for them." He studied her face, then nodded slowly. "All right, but I am not leaving your side. I would not want you to." The ride home was tense. Clara's mind raced, trying to anticipate what would happen at the gathering. Would they try to shame her? Demand she apologize? She had spoken the truth to Margaret, but truth did not always matter when power was involved. That evening, as they prepared dinner, Wyatt kept glancing at her like he wanted to say something, but did not know how. "Just say it," Clara finally said, chopping vegetables with more force than necessary. "I am worried about tomorrow." "So am I. We could leave. The ranch, Silver Creek, all of it. Start over somewhere new, where nobody knows our story." Clara set down the knife. "Is that what you want?" "I want you safe, happy. If staying here means constant fighting, constant judgment, it will not always be like this. We are changing things, slowly. People are starting to see us differently. If we run now, we throw all that away. And if tomorrow goes badly, then we deal with it together." She moved closer, taking his hands. "I am not running anymore, Wyatt. Not from my past, not from this town, not from anything. I am done being afraid. He pulled her into his arms, holding tight. You are the bravest person I know. Or the most stubborn. Both. Definitely both. They finished making dinner, but neither had much appetite. The weight of tomorrow hung over them like a storm cloud, dark and threatening. That night, Clara could not sleep. She lay beside Wyatt. She had moved into his room permanently weeks ago and listened to his steady breathing. He had fallen asleep with one arm around her, protective even in unconsciousness. She thought about the girl she had been, terrified, powerless, sold to a stranger. That girl would never have stood up to Margaret Caldwell, would never have defended herself in public, would never have found the strength to love someone, to build something worth fighting for. Wyatt had given her more than safety and shelter. He had given her the space to become herself, and she would be damned if she let anyone take that away. Morning came too fast. They dressed carefully. Clara in her best dress, simple but clean. Wyatt in his good shirt and vest. Armor for a different kind of battle. The church was packed when they arrived, every pew filled, people standing along the walls. All eyes turned to them as they entered, and the whispers started immediately. Pastor Reed stood at the front, looking deeply uncomfortable. Beside him stood Margaret Caldwell and 3 other women from the committee, all wives of prominent men, all regarding Clara with varying degrees of disapproval. "Thank you for coming," Pastor Reed began, his voice strained. "We have called this gathering to address some concerns that have been raised about conduct within our community." "Get on with it," someone muttered from the back. Margaret stepped forward, her chin high. "I will speak plainly. Yesterday in Mrs. Hargrove's store, Mrs. Harlan said things to me that were disrespectful and inappropriate. She suggested I was unhappy in my marriage. She implied I was jealous of her situation." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Is this true, Mrs. Harlan?" Pastor Reed asked. Clara stood, feeling Wyatt tense beside her. "It is true I spoke to Mrs. Caldwell. As for what I said, yes, I suggested that she might understand complicated family situations. And I did point out that many marriages in this town are based on practical considerations rather than love. If that is disrespectful, then I suppose I am guilty." "You see?" Margaret's voice rose triumphantly. "She admits it. She has no respect for the sanctity of marriage, for the proper order of things. She is encouraging women to question their husbands, to abandon their duties." "I am doing no such thing," Clara interrupted. "I am encouraging women to be honest about their circumstances. There is a difference." "Is there? You stood in this very church months ago and admitted your marriage was a transaction, that you married Mr. Harlan to escape debt. What kind of example does that set? An honest one. It is shameful." "Why?" Clara stepped into the aisle, her voice carrying through the church. "Why is honesty shameful? Half the women in this room married for security, for position, for their family's sake. But they dress it up in pretty words and pretend it is something else. I refuse to do that. I married Wyatt because I had no other choice. But I stayed with him because I chose to. Because he gave me something worth staying for. If that threatens you, Margaret, maybe you should examine why." "How dare you?" "No, how dare you?" Clara's anger, carefully controlled until now, began to slip free. "You have spent months making my life difficult, whispering, judging, trying to shame me into silence. Why? What did I ever do to you?" Margaret's face was scarlet. "You made a mockery of marriage, of everything decent women are supposed to be." "Decent women?" Clara laughed bitterly. "You mean silent women, obedient women, women who smile and nod and never ask for more than they are given. I'm sorry I am not that woman, but I will not apologize for it. Then perhaps you do not belong in this community. The words fell like stones. The church went silent. Is that what this is? Clara looked around at the gathered crowd. A trial? Are you voting on whether I am acceptable? We are discussing standards, one of the other committee women said primly. Expectations for how married women should conduct themselves. And what are those standards exactly? Be quiet? Be grateful? Never question anything? Clara's voice shook. My mother lived by those standards. She stayed quiet while my father destroyed everything. She was grateful for scraps and never questioned his decisions. And it killed her. So forgive me if I am not eager to follow that example. Your personal tragedies do not excuse your behavior, Margaret snapped. And your comfortable life does not give you the right to judge mine. The two women faced each other across the aisle, the tension so thick it felt physical. Then a voice spoke from the back of the church. Maybe we are asking the wrong questions. Everyone turned. Mrs. Hargrove stood, her hands folded calmly in front of her. What do you mean, Helen? Pastor Reed asked. I mean, we are spending a lot of energy discussing whether Clara Harlan is behaving properly. But we are not asking whether we are treating her properly. Mrs. Hargrove's gaze swept the room. This girl came to us in desperate circumstances. Her father's debts threatened to destroy her. Wyatt Harlan offered her a way out, and she took it. That took courage. And since then, what have we done? Made her feel welcome? Offered friendship? No. We have gossiped and judged and made her every trip to town an ordeal. She brought it on herself, someone muttered. Did she? Or did we decide she was guilty of something and never gave her a chance to prove otherwise? Helen, that is not fair, Margaret started. Is it not? Tell me, Margaret, when was the last time you invited Clara to tea? Asked how she was settling in? Offered any kindness at all? Hargrove waited, but Margaret said nothing. That is what I thought. We are so busy protecting our standards that we have forgotten basic Christian charity. This is not about charity, another woman said. It is about maintaining proper behavior. Whose behavior? Mrs. Hargrove shot back. Clara's or ours? The question hung in the air. Clara could see it working on people, the doubt, the discomfort. Some faces remained hard, but others were starting to soften. I am not perfect, Clara said quietly. I never claimed to be. I have made mistakes, said things I should not have. But I am trying to build a life here, a good life, with a good man. If that is not enough for you, if you need me to pretend to be something I am not, then maybe Margaret is right. Maybe I do not belong here. That is not what I want, a soft voice said. Everyone turned. Sarah Jenkins stood, her hands twisting nervously. She was barely 20, married to one of the Miller boys 2 years ago. I am sorry. I do not mean to interrupt, but... Sarah's voice trembled. When Mrs. Harlan spoke at that first gathering about survival and making hard choices, it helped me. My marriage is not what I hoped it would be, and I felt so alone. But hearing her talk about choosing to stay, about finding dignity in difficult circumstances, it made me feel less alone. So if we are voting on whether she belongs here, I vote yes. Me too, another voice said, then another. Not everyone, not even most, but enough to matter. Margaret's face was tight with fury. This is ridiculous. We cannot let sentiment override proper standards. What standards, Margaret? Wyatt's voice cut through the noise like a blade. He stood, and the room went quiet. He rarely spoke in public, and when he did, people listened. The standard that says a woman should be grateful for crumbs? The standard that says she should stay silent even when she is being mistreated? Those are not standards. They are chains. Mr. Harlan, with respect, This is a matter for the women. No, it is a matter for anyone with a conscience. Wyatt's gaze swept the room. My wife stood up for herself. She spoke truth that made some of you uncomfortable, and instead of examining why you are uncomfortable, you are trying to shame her back into silence. That is not community. That is cruelty. We are not being cruel, Pastor Reed said weakly. We are just trying to maintain order. Order built on fear and judgment is not order. It is tyranny. Wyatt took Clara's hand. My wife is brave, honest, and stronger than anyone in this room. If you cannot see that, if you would rather drive her out than accept her, then you are not the community I thought you were. He started to lead Clara toward the door, but Margaret's voice stopped them. If you walk out now, you are proving me right. Proving you do not respect this community or its values. Wyatt turned back, his eyes hard. I respect people, Margaret, not empty values used as weapons. There is a difference. They walked out together, and behind them, Clara heard the sound of footsteps. She glanced back to see Mrs. Hargrove following, then Thomas Whitaker, then Sarah Jenkins and her husband. Not everyone. Maybe a dozen people total. But they followed. Outside in the bright sunlight, Clara finally let herself breathe. That could have gone better, she said shakily. Could have gone worse, too, Mrs. Hargrove said. Margaret has been building to something like this for years. At least now it is out in the open. What happens now? Now we see who people really are. Some will side with Margaret, others will think for themselves, and the town will either grow up a little or stay stuck in its old ways. Mrs. Hargrove smiled. Either way, you did good in there, girl. Sarah approached hesitantly. Mrs. Harlan, I meant what I said. Thank you for being honest. It helps more than you know. Thank you for speaking up. That took courage. Not as much as what you did. People began to disperse, some heading back into the church, others toward home. Clara and Wyatt climbed into their wagon, and the small group who had followed them out stood watching. You have got friends here, Thomas said. Not many, maybe, but real ones. That is all anyone needs, Wyatt replied. They rode home in silence at first, both processing what had happened. The confrontation had been ugly, but not as devastating as Clara had feared. She had stood her ground, found allies, survived. Do you regret it? Wyatt asked as they climbed into the foothills. Not backing down? No. Do you regret defending me? Never. Then we are good. Clara leaned against his shoulder. We are going to be outsiders for a while, are we not? Probably. Some people will not forgive us for not fitting their mold. I can live with that. Me too. The ranch appeared ahead, solid and welcoming. Home, Clara thought. Not a cage, not a compromise, but genuinely home. That evening, as they worked together preparing dinner, Clara felt something settle in her chest. Peace, maybe, or just the certainty that she had made the right choice. I have been thinking, Wyatt said as they sat down to eat, about the horse breeding plan. If we are serious about it, we need to start making moves. Expand the barn, acquire better breeding stock, build a reputation. That takes money. I have got some saved, and we could take out a loan if needed. From the bank? From Margaret's husband? Wyatt grimaced. Good point. There are other banks in other towns. We are not trapped here. But this is home. I do not want to leave. Then we build something so successful they cannot ignore us. Make them see you are not just my wife. You are a businesswoman, a partner. The idea took root in Clara's mind. Not just surviving, but thriving. Not just enduring the town's judgment, but becoming too successful to dismiss. We would need a name, she said, for the operation. What about Harlan Ranch horses? Simple, clear. Or Bennett and Harlan, a partnership. Wyatt smiled. I like that. Shows it is ours, not just mine. They spent the evening planning, sketching out barn expansions, discussing which horses to acquire first, calculating costs and potential profits. It was practical and grounding, a reminder that their life was about more than town politics and petty grudges. Later, as they got ready for bed, Clara caught Wyatt watching her with an odd expression. "What?" she asked. "Just thinking about how much has changed. When I married you, I hoped we might become friends eventually. Partners, if I was lucky. I never imagined this." "What specifically?" "You, strong and fearless, planning business ventures, standing up to the whole town. You are magnificent." Clara felt her cheeks heat. "I am just doing what needs doing." "No, you are choosing to fight instead of hide. That is different." He crossed to her, framing her face with his hands. "I loved you when you were scared and uncertain, but watching you grow into your strength, it is the greatest privilege of my life." She kissed him then, pouring into it everything she could not find words for. Gratitude, love, hope for the future they were building together. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Wyatt rested his forehead against hers. "Whatever comes next," he said, "we face it together." Together, Clara agreed. And for the first time since her mother died, she believed in tomorrow. But believing in tomorrow did not make it arrive any easier. The next weeks brought a cold silence from Silver Creek. No one came to visit. When Clara and Wyatt went to town for supplies, people averted their eyes or crossed the street to avoid them. Even Mrs. Hargrove seemed cautious, greeting them with a tight smile, but not lingering to talk. "They are scared," Wyatt said, as they loaded supplies into the wagon. "Margaret is making examples of anyone who sides with us. How long can she keep that up?" "As long as people let her." The isolation stung more than Clara wanted to admit. She had fought so hard to find her place, to build connections, and now it felt like she was right back where she started, alone, except for Wyatt. But there was work to do, and work did not care about town politics. They threw themselves into the ranch, expanding the corral, repairing the barn roof, preparing for the horses they planned to acquire. Clara's hands grew harder, her muscles stronger. She could rope a horse now without Wyatt's help, could read weather patterns in the clouds, could handle a rifle with confidence. "You are becoming a proper rancher," Wyatt said one afternoon as she successfully broke a young gelding to saddle. "Still got a long way to go." "Maybe, but you have come further than most would in twice the time." The compliment warmed her more than it should have. She had spent her whole life being told what she could not do, what she was not capable of. Having someone believe in her abilities felt revolutionary. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, a rider appeared on the horizon. Wyatt tensed, his hand moving instinctively toward the rifle leaning against the wall. "Easy," Clara said. "Let us see who it is first." As the rider drew closer, Clara recognized Thomas Whitaker. He looked agitated, his horse lathered from hard riding. "Thomas, what is wrong?" Clara called as he dismounted. "It is Sarah Jenkins. Her husband, Jack, he found out she spoke up for you at the gathering. He is furious, locked her in their house, will not let her leave. My sister heard her crying through the window." Wyatt stood, his face hardening. "Where is the sheriff?" "Sheriff Kane says it is a domestic matter. Will not intervene unless there is proof of violence." Thomas's jaw clenched. "But we all know what Jack is like when he is angry. It is only a matter of time." Clara felt ice in her veins. Sarah had defended her, and now she was paying the price. "We have to help her." "How?" Wyatt asked. though his tone said he was already planning. "We cannot just break down their door." "Why not?" Clara was already moving toward the barn. "She is in danger because of me. I am not letting her suffer for being kind." "Clara, wait." "No." She spun to face him. "I am done waiting, done being careful. That girl stood up when no one else would, and now she needs us. Are you coming or not?" Wyatt studied her face, then nodded sharply. "Thomas, ride to town and get anyone you trust. Tell them to meet us at the Miller place. Do not make a scene, but make it clear this is not a request." Thomas nodded and swung back into his saddle, wheeling his horse toward town. "This could get ugly," Wyatt said, as they saddled their horses. "Jack Miller is not going to back down easy. Then it gets ugly. I'm tired of good people suffering because bad people are louder." They rode hard, reaching the Miller homestead just as dusk was settling in. It was a small house, poorly maintained with a sagging porch and broken fence. Lamplight flickered in one window, and Clara could hear raised voices inside. Jack's angry shout, Sarah's pleading response. Wyatt dismounted and approached the door, Clara right behind him. He knocked firmly. The voices inside stopped. Footsteps, then the door jerked open. Jack Miller stood there, a big man gone soft around the middle with mean eyes and whiskey on his breath. "What do you want?" "We want to see Sarah," Wyatt said evenly. "Make sure she is all right." "She is fine. None of your business anyway." "If she is fine, then there is no harm in us talking to her." Jack's face darkened. "Get off my property, Harlan. You and your—" He glanced at Clara with undisguised contempt. "Take your trouble somewhere else." "The only trouble here is you," Clara said coldly. "Let us see Sarah, or we will get the sheriff." "Sheriff already said this is not his concern. Now leave before I make you." He started to close the door, but Wyatt's boot blocked it. "We are not leaving without seeing her." For a moment, the two men stared at each other. Then Jack's hand dropped to his belt, where a knife hung in a worn sheath. "You threatening me in my own home?" "I am asking you to do the right thing. Let your wife come out and speak for herself." "She does not got nothing to say. I handle my wife how I see fit." "She is not property," Clara snapped. "She is a person with rights." "She is my wife, which means she does what I tell her." Jack's voice rose. "Just like you should be doing what Harlan tells you. But I heard about your little performance at church. Guess he does not have proper control either." Wyatt's fist connected with Jack's jaw before Clara even saw him move. Jack staggered back, shocked, then lunged forward with a roar. The two men crashed together, grappling, and Clara heard Sarah scream from inside the house. "Stop it!" Clara pushed past them into the house. Sarah was huddled in the corner of the main room, her face tear-streaked, a bruise blooming on her cheek. "Sarah, come on. We are leaving." "I cannot." He will what? You are coming with us, now." Behind her, she heard the fight spill onto the porch, furniture breaking, the solid thud of fists on flesh. But Clara focused on Sarah, pulling her to her feet, wrapping an arm around her shaking shoulders. "It will be worse if I go," Sarah whispered. "He will make me pay for it later. There will not be a later. You are not coming back here." They emerged onto the porch just as riders appeared from town. Thomas, his sister Anna, Mellis, Hargrove, and surprisingly, Sheriff Kane himself. The sheriff took in the scene with wary eyes. Wyatt and Jack separated now, both breathing hard, both bloodied. "What is going on here?" Kane demanded. "These people broke into my house," Jack shouted. "Attacked me. I want them arrested." "That is not what happened," Clara said firmly. "We came to check on Sarah after hearing she was being held against her will. Jack refused to let us see her, then attacked Wyatt. She is lying. Sarah, tell them. All eyes turned to Sarah, still clinging to Clara's arm. The girl's face was pale, her body trembling. For a long moment she said nothing. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, "He locked me in after the church gathering, said I shamed him by speaking up. Her voice broke. "He hit me!" The silence that followed was absolute. Sheriff Kane's expression hardened. "Is this true, Jack?" "She is exaggerating. I discipline my wife, that is all. I got a right. You got no right to lock her up and beat her." Kane stepped closer to Jack. "Sarah, do you want to press charges?" Sarah looked terrified. I do not know." "She is coming with us," Wyatt said flatly, wiping blood from his split lip. "Tonight. She can decide about charges later, but she is not staying here." "You cannot just take my wife." Jack's face was purple with rage. "Watch me," Wyatt said. Kane held up a hand. "Hold on. Sarah, you are a grown woman. Where do you want to go?" Sarah looked at Clara, her eyes desperate and hopeful at once. Would you? "You can stay with us," Clara said immediately, "as long as you need." Like hell she can. Jack started forward, but Kane blocked him. "That is enough. Sarah has made her choice. You try to interfere, and I will arrest you. Understood?" Jack's hands clenched into fists, but he nodded once jerkily. They got Sarah onto Clara's horse, and Clara climbed up behind her, holding the frightened girl steady. As they rode on from the Miller homestead, Clara looked back once to see Jack standing in his doorway, silhouetted by lamplight, radiating fury. "This is not over," she murmured. "Probably not," Wyatt agreed, riding alongside them. "But we did the right thing." At the ranch, they settled Sarah in Clara's old room, the one with the lock on the inside of the door. She was quiet, almost numb with shock, but she let Clara help her wash her face and find clean clothes. "Thank you," Sarah said, as Clara prepared to leave her for the night. "I know I am bringing trouble to your door, but you are bringing nothing but yourself, and you are welcome here." Clara squeezed her hand. "Get some rest. We will figure everything else out tomorrow." But sleep did not come easy for any of them that night. Clara lay beside Wyatt, listening to him breathe, knowing he was awake too. "You think Jack will come after her?" she asked quietly. "Maybe. Or he will try to turn the town against us even more. Either way, we have made another enemy. I do not care, I know. That is what worries me." Clara propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at him in the darkness. "Would you have done it differently?" "No. But I have been making enemies for years. I am used to it. You are not. Then I will learn. I am a quick study." He smiled, though it did not quite reach his eyes. "That you are." Morning brought unexpected visitors. Mrs. Hargrove and Anna Whitaker arrived with baskets of food and supplies for Sarah. "Word is spreading fast," Mrs. Hargrove said, as they unloaded provisions. "Half the town is talking about what happened. Some are saying you had no right to interfere. Others are saying it is about time someone stood up to Jack Miller." "Which half is bigger?" Clara asked. "Hard to say, but Margaret is working overtime to paint you as troublemakers. Says you are destroying the fabric of family life by stopping a man from beating his wife. Logic does not enter into it, dear. This is about power and control. Margaret sees you as a threat to the order she has built her life around." Sarah appeared in his doorway, looking small and uncertain. Anna immediately went to her, wrapping her in a gentle hug. "How are you feeling?" Anna asked. "Scared, confused, grateful." Sarah looked at Clara. I keep thinking I should go back, that this is wrong." "It is not wrong," Clara said firmly. "What he did was wrong. You leaving is survival, but marriage vows do not include permission to hurt you. Anyone who says different is lying." Mrs. Hargrove nodded approvingly. "Well said. Sarah, you take all the time you need to figure out what comes next. Do not let anyone rush you." After they left, Sarah helped Clara with the household chores, moving quietly, almost apologetically. It was clear she was used to making herself small, to avoiding notice. "You do not have to tiptoe around," Clara said, as they worked in the kitchen. "This is your home now, at least for as long as you want it to be." "I do not know what I want." Sarah's voice was hollow. "I thought marriage would be different, unbreakable, but Jack changed after the wedding. Or maybe he just stopped pretending. What was he like before?" "Kind, attentive. He said all the right things." She laughed bitterly. "I was so stupid. You were not stupid. You were hopeful." "There is a difference. Were you hopeful when you married Wyatt?" Clara considered the question. "No, I was desperate. But somehow that turned into something real. I got lucky. I wish I had been that lucky. You still can be. This does not have to be your whole story." Sarah looked at her with something like wonder. "How are you so strong? You are younger than me, but you act like nothing can touch you." "Plenty can touch me. I just do not let it keep me down anymore." Clara dried her hands on a towel. "Strength is not about not being afraid, Sarah. It is about being afraid and doing what needs doing anyway." That afternoon, as Clara and Wyatt worked on expanding the barn, Sheriff Kane rode up. His face was grave. "Thought you should know, Jack Miller has filed a complaint. Says you assaulted him and stole his wife." Wyatt straightened, hammer in hand. "And I told him if he pushes it, I will arrest him for assault and unlawful imprisonment." Man has got no leg to stand on legally, but Kane hesitated. "He is stirring up the other men, talking about rights and property and how women are getting out of control. It is ugly talk, and it is getting traction." "Let them talk," Clara said. "We did the right thing. Doing the right thing and being safe are not always the same." Kane's gaze moved between them. "Watch yourselves. Jack is not smart, but he is mean, and mean men do stupid things when they feel cornered." After the sheriff left, Wyatt insisted on setting up better security. He moved the rifles to easy reach, made sure all the horses were secured at night, started locking the house doors, something they had never bothered with before. "You think he will actually try something?" Clara asked, as she watched him check the locks for the third time. "I think angry men are unpredictable. I would rather be prepared and wrong than careless and sorry." The days that followed were tense. Sarah slowly began to relax, helping around the ranch, even laughing occasionally. But the shadow of what she had left behind hung over all of them. Then, a week after Sarah's arrival, they woke to find their northern fence destroyed. Not broken by accident or weather, deliberately cut, the posts pulled up and scattered. 20 of their horses had wandered off into the hills. Wyatt stood looking at the damage, his jaw tight with barely controlled rage. This was Jack. "You do not know that," Clara said, though she suspected the same. "Who else? This took time and effort. Someone wanted to hurt us. It took 2 days to round up all the horses. 2 days of hard riding, camping in rough country, barely sleeping. When they finally returned to the ranch, exhausted and filthy, they found Sarah in tears. "What happened?" Clara asked, alarm spiking. "Jack was here while you were gone. He pounded on the door, screaming at me to come out, called me." Her voice broke. "Called me terrible things. Said I would regret leaving him, that you would regret taking me in." Wyatt's face went cold and hard. Did he try to get inside? No. The lock held, but I was so scared. You did good, Clara said, wrapping her arms around the shaking girl. You stayed safe. That is what matters. But that night, as they lay in bed, Wyatt said what they were both thinking. This is escalating. The fence, the harassment. He is not going to stop. What are our options? We could send Sarah somewhere else, another town maybe, where Jack cannot find her. She does not want to leave, she told me. This is the first place she has felt safe. Then we make sure she stays safe. But that means being ready for whatever Jack tries next. You think he would actually attack us? I think he has already proven he is willing to destroy our property and threaten a woman. Violence is not a far leap from there. Clara stared at the ceiling, her mind racing. They had done the right thing taking Sarah in. She knew that. But the cost kept climbing, and she had no idea where it would end. 2 days later, they got their answer. Clara was working in the garden when she heard horses approaching. Multiple riders moving fast. She looked up to see 6 men riding toward the house, Jack Miller at their head. "Wyatt!" she shouted, already running for the house. He emerged with a rifle, his face set. Sarah appeared in the doorway, pale with terror. "Stay inside," Wyatt told her. "Lock the door." The riders pulled up in the yard, their horses snorting and stamping. Jack sat tall in his saddle, flanked by men Clara recognized from town, all friends of his, all with the same mean, determined look. "We have come for my wife," Jack announced. "She is not your wife anymore," Wyatt said calmly. "She is choosing to leave that life. You need to respect that." "Respect?" Jack laughed harshly. "You talk to me about respect while you harbor my property? She is not property, and she is not leaving. We will see about that." Jack gestured to his men. "Search the house. Bring her out." The men started to dismount, but Wyatt leveled the rifle. "First man who takes another step gets shot. I am not bluffing." The men froze, looking to Jack uncertainly. "You would shoot us over some woman?" one of them asked. "Over the principle of a woman's right to choose her own path?" "Yes, absolutely." Clara had retrieved her own rifle and now stood beside Wyatt, her heart hammering, but her hand steady. "You are trespassing. Leave. Now." "This is between me and my wife," Jack snarled. "No, it is between you and us. And you are outnumbered. How do you figure? 6 of us, 2 of you, 8 of us," a voice called out. Clara turned to see Thomas Whitaker riding up with his sister and 5 other townspeople, including, shockingly, Sheriff Kane. "This stops now, Jack," Kane said, his voice carrying authority. "You are harassing these people on their own property. I have warned you before. They stole my wife. Sarah left of her own free will. Multiple witnesses confirmed she was being held against her will and assaulted. Now, you are attempting what looks a lot like an armed home invasion." Kane's hand rested on his own gun. "Disperse now, or I start making arrests." Jack's face was red with fury, but he saw the odds shifting. His men were already backing their horses up, clearly having second thoughts. "This is not over," Jack spat at Wyatt. "You think you can just take what is mine?" "She was never yours," Clara said coldly. "Women are not possessions. The sooner you learn that, the better off you will be." "You." Jack started toward her, but Wyatt stepped between them. "Touch her, and you die." "That is not a threat. That is a promise." For a long moment, the 2 men stared at each other. Then Jack jerked his horse's head around and rode off, his men following. But the look he threw back over his shoulder promised this was far from finished. After they left, Clara's legs nearly gave out. Thomas was immediately there, steadying her. "You all right?" "I will be. Thank you for coming, all of you." "Saw them riding out of town, armed and angry," Thomas said. "Figured where they were headed. Could not let them do this." Sheriff Kane dismounted, approaching Wyatt. "I will post a deputy out here for a few days. Make sure Jack does not try anything else. But you need to understand, this situation cannot continue indefinitely. Either Sarah files formal charges and we deal with this legally, or she leaves the territory entirely." "She should not have to leave," Clara protested. "She is the victim here." "I know, but sometimes the law and justice do not line up the way we would like. I am sorry, but that is the reality." Inside the house, they found Sarah huddled in the corner of her room, shaking. Clara sat with her while Wyatt and the others talked strategy outside. "I am so sorry," Sarah whispered. "I have brought this nightmare to your door. You did not bring anything. Jack did. His choices, his violence, that is on him, not you. But you are in danger because of me. We are in danger because we chose to help someone who needed it. I would make the same choice again." Clara took Sarah's hand. "But Sheriff Kane is right. This cannot go on forever. You need to decide. Do you file charges, or do you start over somewhere new?" Sarah's face crumpled. "I do not want to testify against him. The whole town would be there, watching, judging. Then we help you leave, get you somewhere safe where Jack cannot find you. But I do not want to leave you. You have been so kind, and I will be kind by helping you get free, truly free. That is what matters." Sarah cried then, and Clara held her, feeling her own heart break a little. They had fought so hard to protect this girl, but sometimes protection meant letting go. That evening, Clara and Wyatt sat on the porch while Sarah slept inside, exhausted from the day's trauma. "I have been thinking about what the sheriff said," Wyatt began. "About Sarah leaving? About everything. The town, the fighting, the constant battles." He looked at her directly. "When does it end, Clara? When do we get to just live? I do not know, but I am not sorry we helped her. Neither am I. But I am worried about what comes next. We have made a lot of enemies. Margaret, Jack, half the town council. At some point, they are going to find a way to hurt us that we cannot defend against." "What are you saying? That we should back down, hide?" "I am saying we should be smart, pick our battles, maybe not fight every fight." Clara stood, frustration rising. "So we just let people like Jack and Margaret win? Let them control everything through fear?" "I am saying we cannot save everyone, and trying to might destroy us. Better destroyed fighting for what is right than safe and silent. Easy to say when it is theoretical, harder when it is your life at stake." They stared at each other, the tension thick between them. This was their first real argument, and it cut deeper than Clara expected. "I thought you understood," she said quietly. "I thought you believed in fighting back." "I do. But I also believe in surviving, and right now those things are starting to feel mutually exclusive." Clara turned away, wrapping her arms around herself. "I cannot go back to being quiet, to accepting things as they are. You gave me the courage to fight. You cannot ask me to stop now. I am not asking you to stop. I am asking you to be careful, to think about consequences. I have thought about them, and I have decided some things are worth the risk." Wyatt sighed, standing and moving behind her. His hand settled gently on her shoulders. "I know. That is what I love about you. But it is also what terrifies me, because I do not know how to keep you safe when you are determined to put yourself in danger." Clara turned in his arms, looking up at him. "You keep me safe by standing beside me, not by putting me in a cage, even a comfortable one. Even if standing beside you means we both fall, even then, at least we fall together." He kissed her forehead, pulling her close. You are going to be the death of me. You know that? Probably. But you knew that when you married me. No, I really did not. I thought I was getting a scared girl who needed protection. Instead, I got a warrior. I'm surprised. They held each other as the sun set, both knowing the fight was not over. But at least they were fighting it together, and fighting together turned out to be exactly what they needed. The next morning brought clarity in an unexpected form. Sarah came to breakfast with her jaw set and her eyes clear, a different woman from the terrified girl who had arrived at their door. I have decided, she said. I am filing charges. All of them. Assault, unlawful imprisonment, destruction of property for what he did to your fence, everything. Clara nearly dropped her coffee cup. Sarah, are you sure? Yesterday you said. Yesterday I was scared. Today I am angry. Sarah's hands trembled slightly, but her voice was steady. I have spent 2 years being afraid of Jack Miller, making myself smaller, quieter, trying not to set him off. And what did it get me? Bruises and terror, and a life that was not mine. I am done with that. Wyatt leaned back in his chair, studying her. You know what this means? A trial. Testimony. The whole town watching. I know. But watching you two stand up to him yesterday, watching you risk everything to protect me, it made me realize something. Staying silent does not keep you safe. It just makes you disappear. She looked at Clara. You taught me that. By refusing to disappear, no matter how hard they tried to erase you. Clara felt her throat tighten. It is going to be hard. So is staying with him. At least this way, I am fighting back. They rode into town that afternoon, all 3 of them, and walked straight into the sheriff's office. Kane listened to Sarah's statement, taking careful notes, his expression growing grimmer with each detail. This is going to cause trouble, he warned. Jack has got friends. They will make this difficult. Let them try, Sarah said. Word spread through Silver Creek like wildfire. By evening, everyone knew Sarah Jenkins had filed formal charges against her husband. The town split cleanly down the middle. Those who thought she was brave, and those who thought she was destroying the natural order of things. Margaret Caldwell, predictably, led the second group. She appeared at the ranch 3 days later, her buggy kicking up dust as it rolled into the yard. Clara saw her coming and steeled herself. Mrs. Caldwell, what brings you here? Margaret climbed down without waiting for help, her dress immaculate despite the journey. I came to talk sense into you, all of you. We are not interested in your version of sense. Then you are fools. Margaret's eyes were hard. You have created chaos in this town, first with your inappropriate marriage, then with your disrespect to church, and now this. Encouraging a wife to betray her husband, to drag private matters into public court. He beat her, Clara said flatly. That is not a private matter. How a man disciplines his wife is absolutely a private matter. If every woman ran to the law every time her husband raised his hand, society would collapse. The casual acceptance of violence in those words made Clara's blood run cold. Is that what you tell yourself when your husband, my marriage is none of your concern? But something flickered in Margaret's eyes, something that looked almost like fear. The point is, Sarah made vows, for better or worse. She does not get to break them because things got difficult. Difficult? Wyatt had appeared on the porch, his voice dangerous. You call being locked up and beaten difficult? I call it marriage. It is not always pretty, but it is sacred. And what you are doing, taking her in, encouraging this rebellion, it is poison. You are teaching women they can just walk away whenever they are unhappy. No, Sarah said, stepping out to join them. They are teaching women they can walk away when they are unsafe. There is a difference, though I am starting to think you do not see it. Margaret's face flushed. "You ungrateful little—" "Careful," Wyatt warned. "You are on my property. I think very carefully about what you say next." Margaret visibly collected herself. "The trial is in 2 weeks. I want you to know I will be testifying for Jack. I will be telling the judge exactly what kind of influence these two have had on you, how they have manipulated a vulnerable young woman into destroying her marriage." "Testify all you want," Sarah said. "The truth is the truth. The truth is what 12 men decide it is. And those men? They are husbands, fathers. They understand that maintaining order sometimes requires a firm hand. They are not going to side with you." She climbed back into her buggy and left, but her words hung in the air like smoke. "She might be right," Sarah said quietly. "About the jury, about how they will see this. Then we make sure they cannot ignore what Jack did," Clara said. "We find witnesses. We document everything. We make the truth so loud they cannot pretend not to hear it." Over the next weeks, they did exactly that. Mrs. Hargrove testified to Sarah's bruises. Anna Whitaker confirmed hearing the screams. Even Thomas admitted he had seen Jack's temper before, though it cost him some friendships to say so publicly. But Jack had his defenders too, men who swore he was a good husband, a decent fellow, that Sarah was exaggerating or outright lying. Margaret gave her promised testimony, painting Clara and Wyatt as dangerous radicals, corrupting traditional values. The trial became a referendum on more than just Jack Miller's actions. It became about whether women had the right to leave, to choose safety over obligation, to demand better. The courtroom was packed on the day of Sarah's testimony. Clara and Wyatt sat in the front row, a silent show of support. Sarah took the stand in a plain dress, her hands folded, her voice shaking, but determined. She told everything. The progression of violence, the isolation, the fear. She showed the scars on her arms where Jack had grabbed her. She described being locked in her own home, being told she was worthless, being hit for speaking out of turn. The jury listened with stone faces. Jack's lawyer, a slick man from the next county, tore into her on cross-examination. "Is not it true, Mrs. Jenkins, that you have been living at the Harlan Ranch for weeks now?" "Yes, in close quarters with a married couple, unsupervised. I have my own room. But you are there day and night observing their unconventional marriage, a marriage that began as a business transaction. Is not it possible their perspective has colored your view of your own marriage?" "No. My husband's fists colored my view of my marriage." A murmur ran through the courtroom. "You claim he hit you, but you have no witnesses to these alleged incidents, do you? Abusers do not usually invite an audience. So we only have your word, the word of a woman who abandoned her husband and is now seeking revenge." "I am seeking justice. There is a difference." The lawyer smiled thinly. "In your opinion. Tell me, have Mr. and Mrs. Harlan promised you anything? Money, perhaps? A share in their ranch?" "No." "Really? Because it seems convenient that you would accuse your husband of crimes just as they are building their horse-breeding business, almost like you are repaying a debt." Objection. Sheriff Kane, acting as prosecutor, rose. "Counsel is speculating without evidence." "Sustained," the judge said. "Move on, counselor." But the damage was done. The implication hung in the air that Sarah was lying, manipulated, seeking some ulterior benefit. When Sarah stepped down, she was shaking. Clara caught her arm, steadying her. "You did good," she whispered. "You told the truth. Will it be enough?" Neither of them had an answer. The jury deliberated for hours. When they filed back in, their faces revealed nothing. "We, the jury, find the defendant Jack Miller guilty of assault, not guilty of unlawful imprisonment." Sarah's shoulders sagged. A split verdict. Acknowledgement that he had hit her, but not that he had trapped her. Jack would face a fine and maybe a few months in jail, but nothing more. "That is it?" Clara asked Kane afterward. "He gets a slap on the wrist?" "It is more than most women get," Kane said grimly. "At least there is a conviction. At least it is on record." It felt hollow. Sarah had been so brave, had exposed herself to judgment and humiliation, and this was her reward, a partial victory that changed almost nothing. That night, back at the ranch, Sarah broke down. "I should have known they would never really believe me." "They believed you enough to convict him of assault," Wyatt said. "That is something. It is not enough. He will be out in a few months, angrier than ever." "Then you will be far from here by then," Clara said gently. "We have been talking to people. Thomas has a cousin in Oregon who runs a boarding house. She is looking for help, and she is willing to take you in. New name, new start. Jack will not find you." Sarah looked up, tears streaming. "You are sending me away? We are giving you a choice. Stay and fight, or start fresh where the past cannot reach you." "What would you do?" Clara thought about it. "A year ago, I would have run. I would have taken the first escape I could find. But now, I would probably stay and fight because I am too stubborn to know when to quit. But that is me. You have to decide what is right for you." Sarah was quiet for a long time. "Then I want to go to Oregon. I want to wake up without being afraid. Is that cowardly?" "No," Wyatt said firmly. "It is smart. Survival is not cowardice. It is just survival." They arranged everything over the next week. Train tickets, letters of introduction, enough money to get Sarah settled. Thomas agreed to escort her to Oregon to make sure she arrived safely. The morning Sarah left, she hugged Clara so tight it hurt. "Thank you. For everything. For seeing me when I was invisible. For fighting when I could not. You fought plenty. You just fought differently than I would have. That does not make it less brave." "All right. Let you know I am safe. I would like that." They watched Sarah and Thomas ride away toward the train station, and Clara felt the loss acutely. She had grown to care for the quiet girl who had found her voice too late to save her first life, but just in time to build a second one. "You gave her a gift," Wyatt said, his arm around her shoulders. "Hope, a future. That matters. I just wish it had been different. That she could have stayed. That Jack would have faced real consequences. The world does not always work the way it should, but we do what we can, where we can. That has to be enough." In the aftermath of the trial, something unexpected happened. The town's attitude began to shift. Not everyone, not even most people, but enough. Women who had been silent before started speaking up. Mrs. Hargrove organized a women's committee, a real one, not Margaret's version, focused on helping those in difficult situations. 3 more women left abusive husbands that summer, and the town was forced to reckon with what it had been ignoring for years. Margaret fought it, of course. She railed against the changes, predicted moral collapse, withdrew into bitter isolation. But her power was waning. People were tired of her judgment, tired of pretending everything was fine when it clearly was not. One afternoon in late summer, as Clara worked with a young mare in the training pen, Wyatt appeared with a letter. "It is from the county registrar," he said, his tone odd. "What does it say?" He held it out to her. "It is the deed to the ranch. I had it changed. The property is in both our names now. Equal ownership." Clara stared at the document, not quite believing what she was seeing. "Wyatt, this is you cannot just I can, and I did. This ranch, this business we are building, it is ours, not mine. Ours. I want that official. But why? He stepped closer, taking her hands. Because you have fought beside me for over a year now. You have made this place a home, made it profitable, made it matter. Because you deserve security that does not depend on my goodwill. Because I love you, and I want you to know, really know, that you are not here because you have to be. You are here because you choose to be, and you could choose to leave any time with half of everything we have built. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. I am not going anywhere. I know. But now you are staying because you want to, not because you are trapped. That matters to me. It should matter to you too. She kissed him then, there in the dusty training pen with the horses watching and the sun beating down. It was not their first kiss, or even their 100th, but it felt significant anyway. A seal on a promise neither of them had known they were making when this all started. That evening, they rode into town to file the paperwork. As they walked out of the county office, officially co-owners of the Harlan Ranch, they nearly collided with Margaret Caldwell. She looked older than Clara remembered, more worn. The fire in her eyes had dimmed to embers. I heard what you did, Margaret said, her voice tight. Giving her half your property, making her your equal. She already was my equal, Wyatt said evenly. This just makes it legal. You are a fool, giving power to a woman. It never ends well. Funny, Clara said. I was about to say the same thing about hoarding it. They stood there, 3 people who had been at war for over a year. And something strange happened. Margaret's face crumpled, just for a moment before she caught herself. I should have left, she said quietly. 20 years ago, when I first realized what kind of man I had married. But I was afraid, and now it is too late. I am too old, too invested. So I stayed, and I convinced myself that was strength, that enduring was noble. And maybe it was, in its way. But watching you two, she stopped collecting herself. I am not apologizing. I still think you are reckless and foolish, but I understand now why you make the choices you do. She walked away before either of them could respond, leaving Clara staring after her. Did that just happen? Clara asked. I think she just admitted she was wrong without actually saying the words. That is as close as we will get, I suppose. They rode home as the sun set, painting the mountains gold and pink. The ranch came into view, and Clara felt something settle in her chest. Not happiness exactly, but contentment, purpose, belonging. Tell me something, Wyatt said as they put the horses up for the night. If you could go back to that day on the courthouse steps, knowing everything you know now, would you still marry me? Clara considered the question seriously. The fear, the humiliation, the fights, the hard-won victories, the way she had been forged in fire from a scared girl into someone she barely recognized, but deeply respected. Yes, she said finally. I would marry you. I would choose every hard moment, every fight, every scar, because they led to this, to us, to me becoming someone I actually want to be. Even though it was not your choice initially. Maybe that is the point. I did not choose to marry you, but I chose to stay. I chose to fight. I chose to build something real out of something that started wrong. And those choices? Those were mine. All mine. Nobody can take that away. Wyatt pulled her close, resting his chin on top of her head. I love you. Have I mentioned that recently? Not in the last hour or so. Unforgivable. I love you. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, even though I absolutely did not deserve you. Good thing I do not do things based on what people deserve. I do them based on what I want. And what do you want? She pulled back to look at him. This, you. The ranch, the horses, the life we are building, the partnership we fought for, all of it. That night, they sat on the porch long after dark, talking about the future. The horses they would breed, the land they would expand into, the legacy they would build. Not for children, they had decided against that, preferring to pour their energy into the business and each other, but a legacy nonetheless. Something that proved two people could start from nothing, from worse than nothing, and build something that mattered. Autumn came, bringing cool nights and brilliant leaves. The first crop of foals from their breeding program sold for premium prices, validating their business model. Word spread, and buyers came from 3 counties over to look at Harlan Ranch horses. Bennett and Harlan, Clara reminded people who called it the Harlan Ranch. It is both our names, and slowly people started using the full name, acknowledging her contribution, her equal standing. Sarah's letters came regularly from Oregon. She was doing well, managing the boarding house, even courting a local school teacher. She sounded happy, genuinely happy, in a way she never had during her time in Silver Creek. She made it, Clara said, reading the latest letter. She got out and made it. Because you showed her it was possible, that matters. Winter came again, their second together. This time, Clara did not lock her door. This time, they faced the isolation as partners, working together through the long, dark months. And when spring returned, they emerged stronger. The town had changed too, not completely. Change never worked that way, but enough. Women's voices carried more weight. Abuse was less tolerated. The old certainties about a wife's duty and a husband's rights had been questioned, and while many still clung to tradition, the cracks were showing. Margaret Caldwell died that spring, suddenly and quietly in her sleep. Her husband showed no grief at the funeral. That told Clara everything she needed to know about the woman's life, and she felt a pang of sadness for choices made and regretted. Too late. On the first anniversary of the land deed being changed, Wyatt surprised Clara with a gift, not jewelry or fabric, or any of the things men typically gave their wives. Instead, he led her to the north pasture, where a crew of workers was building something. What is this? A training facility, proper one with covered pens for winter work, a viewing area for buyers, storage for equipment. I hired them last month. Wanted it to be a surprise. Wyatt, we cannot afford. We can. The breeding program is profitable. The regular horse sales are steady. We are doing well, Clara. Better than well. And I wanted to invest in your dream, our dream. She walked through the partially constructed building, seeing it not as it was, but as it would be. Professional, impressive, a statement that they were serious about this business. It is too much, she said, but she was smiling. It is exactly enough. You wanted to be more than just someone's wife. This makes that official. You are not just my partner in life. You are my business partner, my equal in every way that matters. The facility was completed by summer. They held an open house, inviting buyers and trainers from across the territory. People came, more than Clara expected, and they were impressed. The horses were quality, the facilities top-notch, and the woman running the training program clearly knew what she was doing. Is it true you started this with nothing? A buyer from Denver asked. Worse than nothing, Clara said honestly. I started in debt, married to a stranger with no skills and no prospects, but I learned. I worked, and I built this. With your husband? With my partner. There is a difference. The buyer nodded thoughtfully. I respect that. Too many operations are all talk from the husband while the wife does the real work. Nice to see one that is honest about it. After everyone left, Clara and Wyatt stood in the empty training ring, watching the sunset paint the mountains. "We did it," Clara said softly. "We actually did it." Did what? Built something worth having, something that is ours, that nobody can take away or diminish. We started from the worst possible place and made something good. Wyatt pulled her close. "You made something good. I just gave you room to do it. You gave me more than room. You gave me respect, partnership, a chance to become who I was meant to be." "And who are you?" She thought about the question. Not the scared 19-year-old on the courthouse steps. Not someone's daughter or someone's property. Just Clara, whole and complete and utterly herself. "I am someone who does not apologize for taking up space. Someone who fights for what matters and builds what she dreams. Someone who chose her life instead of just enduring it." Sounds like someone I am proud to know. Sounds like someone I am proud to be. They stood there as darkness fell. Two people who had started as strangers, bound by desperation, and become partners, bound by choice. The ranch stretched out around them, testament to what could be built when people were given freedom to become themselves. Silver Creek continued on as towns do. Some people never forgave Clara for refusing to fit their mold. Others came to respect her, or at least accept her. But ultimately, their opinions mattered less and less. What mattered was the life she and Wyatt built, the business they grew, the partnership they chose every single day. Years later, people would tell the story of the girl who was sold to pay her father's debts. Some versions painted her as a victim, others as a troublemaker. But the people who really knew her, the ones who watched her transform a desperate marriage into a thriving partnership, who saw her build a business from nothing, who witnessed her fight for the right to define herself, they told a different story. They told the story of a woman who was given a cage and chose to see it as a door, who took the worst hand she could be dealt and played it so well she won everything that mattered, who proved that freedom is not something you are given. It is something you claim over and over in 1,000 small choices that add up to a life worth living. And they told the story of the man who could have owned her, but chose instead to stand beside her, who understood that real power is not about control, but about partnership, who gave her the space to become herself and was strong enough not to fear what she became. Together, they showed that love built on respect and choice, online choice, could be stronger than any built on obligation or tradition. That two people starting from nothing could build everything that mattered. That the stories we are told about how life should be do not have to match the stories we write for ourselves. On a warm evening in late summer, 3 years after their wedding, Clara and Wyatt sat on their porch watching the horses graze in the twilight. The business was thriving. The ranch was profitable. Their reputation was solid. "Any regrets?" Wyatt asked, a question he posed sometimes, always with the same amused curiosity. "About marrying you?" "Not one." Clara leaned against his shoulder. "About everything that came after? Maybe a few, but I would still make the same choices. Even the hard ones? Especially the hard ones. Easy choices do not teach you anything. What did the hard ones teach you?" She thought about it, about standing up to Margaret, defending Sarah, claiming her space in a world that wanted her silent, about every fight, every victory, every scar. That I am stronger than I knew. That being afraid does not mean being helpless. That the life you choose is worth more than the life you are given, and that sometimes the best things start in the worst ways. Heavy thoughts for a nice evening. Just honest ones. He kissed the top of her head. Honesty. That is where this all started, was it not? You being honest about what the marriage was. Me being honest about what I hoped it could become. And look where honesty got us. Exactly where we belong. The stars came out, brilliant and countless in the mountain sky. Tomorrow would bring more work, more challenges, more choices to make. But tonight, they just sat together, two people who had found each other in the darkness and built something luminous from the wreckage of what could have been. Clara thought about the girl on the courthouse steps one last time. She wished she could tell that terrified 19-year-old that it would be okay. More than okay. That the cage she was walking into had a door, and she would find the strength to open it. That the stranger she was marrying would become her partner in every sense that mattered. That survival would give way to something richer and more complex. But maybe that girl needed to find out for herself. Maybe the only way to become who you are meant to be is to walk through the fire and discover what burns away and what remains. What remained for Clara was herself, refined, strengthened, uncompromising. A woman who had been given every reason to stay small and chose to become larger than life, who had started as property and ended as a partner, who had turned a transaction into a triumph. And beside her sat the man who had made it possible, not by rescuing her, but by giving her the tools to rescue herself. Who had understood that the greatest gift you could give someone was not security or comfort, but the freedom to choose their own path, even when that path led through fire. They built a life together. Not perfect, never easy, but utterly theirs. And in a world that tried to write their story for them, they took the pen and wrote something better, something true. Something that proved love was not about ownership or obligation, but about choosing each other again and again in 1,000 small moments that added up to forever. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything.